Today, I'd like to explore the interesting question of God or country. Sometimes we face that conflict between what maybe God is asking us to do and what the officials in our country are asking us to do. And we've seen this historically. Certainly, we saw it with the earliest Christians. They had the difficulty of pledging allegiance to the emperor. Should they put the emperor first? Should they put Jesus first? And many times they were required to do military service, and they felt because we are Christians, we are followers of Jesus, we can't be soldiers. Some who were soldiers when they converted to be Christians actually resigned from the army and faced imprisonment and faced many difficulties because of that decision. But it was a decision they made to put God before country, which can be a very difficult decision. Not easy to make, and of course with many complications and ambiguities, as moral decisions frequently are. Another example, of course, is Thomas Becket, who faced some difficulties as the Archbishop of Canterbury, going against his king, King Henry, and wound up being killed. Good friends with Henry, and there might have been some confusion in terms of those who killed Thomas. Did Henry really want him to be killed? But Thomas, as Archbishop, would frequently stand up for what he felt was right. And this, of course, was not too welcome by King Henry. Another example with another King Henry is Thomas More. And King Henry VIII, of course, Thomas More, should he pledge allegiance to the king above his faith in the Bishop of Rome and the Catholic Church? What should he do? And very difficult decision for him in terms of his family, but he stood firm. And he put God and his faith above the country and the king. Other examples, of course, are the French Revolution, where many priests and religious women and religious lay people were given the choice to pledge allegiance to the revolution or to their religion and their faith, and they chose their faith, and they went to the guillotine. More contemporary examples. We have the example, of course, of Dorothy Day during the Second World War. Dorothy was a pacifist, and so she was opposed to the war. Her opposition to the war was not greeted too well by many who supported her charitable efforts of feeding the hungry and who had supported her and her paper. She lost many followers, many subscriptions to the paper. It was a very difficult time for her, but she felt, this is what God wants me to do. God wants me to be faithful to the teachings of the gospel, which are against war. And so she was committed to that, and she took a stand against war and against her country, and suffered the consequences of that. And of course, jailed many times too for different protests concerning the war and air raid drills, and things of that nature. Another example in the Second World War is Franz Jagerstatter, the Austrian farmer who was conscripted into the German army and refused to serve because he felt that war was not right. He felt what the authorities were doing was wrong. He stood up against it. He was encouraged and counseled not to do that, just to go along, as everybody, just go along, and even though it's wrong, just, that type of thing, and he just could not do that. It was a difficult decision because he had a wife and 3 daughters, but he stood firm in his faith. An issue in our own day that is raising some of those concerns about God and country is the issue of immigration, which, of course, as we know, is a very complex issue. It has a long religious tradition, going back to the Hebrew Scriptures, the whole concept of welcoming the stranger. When a stranger came, in terms of somebody who was traveling, they were always welcomed, they were always greeted, The idea was if they wanted to stay for a while and become part of your country, they would be welcomed. And this was an important concept of hospitality that is firmly rooted in our biblical tradition. It becomes complex today because of the issue of the legal immigration versus illegal immigration. And of course, the movement in our own country presently to remove those who are here illegally. But of course, the complexity in this situation is that there are four different categories in terms of those who come to a country. There, of course, is somebody who is a migrant who might be seeking better education, better job opportunity. Then there's the immigrant who is formally applying to the country, who wants to enter the country and goes through all the legal channels to do that. And there is the refugee, and the refugee is somebody who is fleeing persecution in their own country, and they become recognized as a refugee. They have to move because of political violence from their country, because of they're being threatened, they're being persecuted, sometimes persecuted for their religion. And so they become a refugee. And then there is the asylum seeker. And that is the person, again, who is suffering in their own country, and they apply at the border to be accepted into another country. The problem in terms of the confusion sometimes is, well, what is legal and what is illegal? And sometimes it's all lumped together. Well, they're all illegal, and let's get rid of them all. And you can see why there would be that tendency, because some people feel it becomes overwhelming. What are the limits? How many people can we take? Can we afford it? Are they taking other people's jobs? Are there criminals involved? It becomes really a complex series of issues that we have to discern, of course, very carefully. And doing it, of course, on a case-by-case basis is very difficult because sometimes you're dealing with overwhelming numbers. And so how do you determine, is this person here seeking asylum a genuine asylum seeker? Are they a genuine refugee? Or are they just somebody who wants to come into a country to seek a better opportunity, or come in, God forbid, with a criminal intention? All of these become hard to discern, and it adds to the complexity of the situation. In all of these questions, as moral people, we ask, well, what does Jesus want us to do? And of course, we know that Jesus has given us certain principles, certain guidelines that we try to follow. And those are found in the Beatitudes, in the moral teaching of Jesus, in the teaching that each person is our sister or brother. And of course, Jesus says when we help those in need, those who are hungry, when we help those who are thirsty, those who are seeking a home, those who are in prison, who are we helping? We literally and actually are helping Jesus, because Jesus is present in their lives. And so we are called to see Jesus in everyone. And this makes the problem of immigration a difficult moral problem for us, because we have to discern, well, is this person here genuine? Are they seeking to be a criminal? Or are they here with bad intent? All of this becomes complex. Recently, this came into focus when the current Vice President, J.D. Vance, who is a Catholic, challenged the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops because they had raised some objections to the policy of the present administration with regard to immigrants and to asylum seekers. And he was saying, we have to be careful. We have to be welcoming. We have to obviously discern who is here with evil intent and who is here with a genuine need as an asylum seeker and as a refugee. We have to be careful with that. because obviously we want to keep our people safe. That is important. And they objected to kind of a blanket policy where everyone who is here in the country, uh, who could be here for seeking asylum and who is waiting for their case to be heard, is just given no rights and transported back to their home. And the bishops are saying, well, wait a minute, there are certain laws. There are United States laws, there are international laws, and you can't do this. This is wrong. And we, as a conference of bishops, and we as a church, try to help in this situation. Try to help those who are fleeing persecution in their homeland, who are fleeing difficult situations. Many of the stories, of course, are heartbreaking of children very young and teenagers who are put under pressure to join a gang. If you don't join the gang, we're going to kill your mother and father. I mean, all of these awful types of situations where, in desperation, people flee because literally their lives are threatened. And so the bishops say, well, you can't just lump all of these people together and start deporting people, because imagine deporting people like that back to their homeland where their lives are threatened. What is going to happen to them? Obviously, not a good thing. So you have to be careful. Vice President seemed to intimate that the bishops were doing this for financial reasons because they were getting, sums from the government. Bishop's response was, we do get money from the government, but we also provide a lot of funds of our own from the generosity of our people who want to welcome others into the community who are doing this for legal reasons, for good reasons. So in terms of God or country, we sometimes have to discern what is our path. Is our country proposing something that is not good, that is harmful? And if it is, do we have a responsibility as Catholics, as people of faith, as Christians, as Hindus, as Muslims, as Jewish people, as Islamic people, the whole gamut of faith? Do we have an obligation to stand up and say, well, wait a minute, this is wrong. There is a higher teaching here that I'm going to follow. And these are not easy decisions to make. They certainly must be made in prayer, with discernment, with caution, with care, seeking advice in our community. But we cannot avoid those types of decisions either, because they're important. Who in our life comes first? Does God come first, or does our country come first?